My talk today is called The Road to Unity. I just wanted to show you this one slide. This is one of the buildings at Unity Village. And I thought with the sidewalk, it looked like the road to unity. One of the first things I volunteered for at my home church in Orlando was working in the garden. The lead gardener was John Warren. He was an older man, but I was much younger then. I wouldn't even consider him old now. And he used to tell people that I was part puppy because I enjoyed digging in the dirt so much. John and I discovered several meaningful coincidences between us. We were both from Springfield, Illinois. We even knew some of the same people. And we both belonged to AA. John had worked as a journalist at the Springfield newspaper, and he had changed papers and moved to other cities several times in the course of his career. He said that when he was moving from one job to another, it didn't always feel like a promotion. And there were times when he questioned the choices that he made. But now, in his retirement, he could look back at his career and see things that he didn't notice before. He saw that each new job had led him to a better position. He noticed the opportunities that had presented themselves and that had advanced his career. And he said that while we are in the midst of our lives, our decisions, our choices, we don't usually see the big picture. Yet it had become obvious to him that each time Spirit had led him to his highest good. And I have often remembered that wisdom, the wisdom that John shared, when I reflect on my road to unity. My journey started in 1988 when I signed myself into a treatment program for drugs and alcohol. I had no experience with the 12-step programs and was surprised to learn that they are based on a greater awareness of God. They lead to a spiritual awakening and promote a life of prayer. When I completed treatment, I felt a longing for spiritual connections. I already had an intense passion for metaphysics, and I was active in some groups at a local metaphysical bookstore. Well, I noticed that they had an AA meeting that met there, and so I started attending that particular meeting. And as I later discovered, the group leaders attended a local Unity church. And they would talk about their church, and it sounded so intriguing. So I finally asked for directions. And the first time I went to Unity was in February of 1989. I was one of those people who knew I had found my home from the first Sunday. I rarely missed a Sunday. The minister belonged to AA, and I felt comfortable and accepted as I adjusted to my new life in sobriety. The first week I attended, they announced that they needed teachers in youth ed. I had experience teaching, so I volunteered. And I met with the youth ed director that week. And I will never forget this kind, gray-haired lady telling me that the big F word around here is flexible. And truer words were never spoken if you're going to be successful in a church. I began my youth ed duties in the nursery, taking care of the babies and the toddlers. And over the next several years, I advanced to teaching older kids. I worked with the uniteens. Those are the middle school, the junior high. That's the hardest age group, by the way. I worked with them for a couple of years, and when several of them were old enough for high school, I helped to found the Youth of Unity, the YOU, which is high school Sunday school at Unity. I went to teen rallies. You would not believe the things I have done. And campouts and lock-ins, slept on the floors of churches. Went to campgrounds where when the girls got scared, they climbed me like I was a palm tree. Ooh. The Southeast region of Unity also had several adult retreats each year, and I attended many of them also. But I've gotten ahead of my story here. So let's go back to 1989 and the AA meeting at the Metaphysical Bookstore. One of the leaders of the group began talking about taking classes at a place in Missouri. She spent her 2-week vacation. You know, most of us in the corporate world got 2 weeks a year off. That was it. That was our vacation. She spent her 2-week vacation there, which seemed a bit extreme to me. We lived in Florida. Why would you go to Missouri for your vacation? But it intrigued me, and then I learned about the Licensed Unity Teacher Program. And 1 year later, I made my first trip to Unity Village. Now I'm going to pause the story just to review and regroup here. When I went to treatment in 1988, I had no idea what to do with my life. I was divorcing my husband. I had fallen out of the career path that I had been pursuing in the software industry. I had to start my life over, making much less money and losing my marital support. I certainly did not expect to become a church lady, nor to find such joy and fulfillment as I found in Unity. And please notice that I was led to Unity through the one activity I was committed to at the time, which was AA. I mentioned that I had a passion for metaphysics before I found Unity, and I had studied it for many years. So when I began taking classes at the church, I was a little hesitant about all this Jesus stuff and Bible study. But I found that those were two of the greatest gifts Unity had to give. Because when you approach those metaphysically, they are rich and rewarding and meaningful and not scary at all. I remember the first class I took, and I was so nervous that the material might contain teachings I could not accept. The minister handed out the workbook, and I opened to the table of contents, and I saw that there was this chapter called Satan, Sin, and Evil. And I thought this might blow the whole shebang here. It was on page 41. I really remember to flip to that chapter thinking, this might be the end of my love affair with Unity. But it was not. And it never has been. The teachings on these things was perfectly acceptable to me. And to this day, I teach them that way. There's nothing to fear. I also remember being in an evening class in the church sanctuary. It was dark outside and it was cozy inside. And I was sitting near a lady from Cuba. This was Florida. We had a lot of Cubans. When I finally got the courage to share that I'd never had much hope for my future because my father was an alcoholic and my mother was mentally ill, this lady reached over and placed her hand on my arm. And then she said, my dear, you are a child of God and you don't inherit any illness. At the time, I did not know the story of Myrtle Fillmore's healing, and I did not know that these were the words that turned her life around. I heard these words fresh and new spoken to me at a time when I needed to hear them, and they were life-changing. Okay, back to my first trip to Unity Village. I arrived on March the 18th, 1990, and woke up my first morning at the village on my 40th birthday. Once you've studied metaphysics for a while, you learn that 40 is a significant number. In the Bible, 40 symbolizes the number of completion. You know, the Israelites maybe really didn't wander around for 40 years. It means it takes as long as it takes. And this, to me, was God's way of confirming to me that I was beginning a new chapter in my life. The first 40 were complete, and the new had begun. So let's remember what John Warren said about God's plan unfolding. In our lives, we have signs and synchronicities and opportunities. I never doubt that I was meant to be a Unity minister. The means, the information, and the synchronicities have all appeared on schedule. And over the years that followed that first trip to the village, I became a licensed Unity teacher, and this led to many speaking opportunities in Florida. It led to my serving as a spiritual leader of a church in Florida. At the same time, I gained the software experience necessary to support myself as a consultant when I went to ministerial school. 48 years old, I gave up my entire career and moved to Missouri and was able to go to school full-time doing software consulting. All of these things appeared at the right time and with very little effort. So let's think back to today's daily word. The word is purpose. And when you recognize your divine purpose, the universe supports you in fulfilling it. Our monthly meditation this coming Friday will focus on having our purpose, our mission revealed to us. Here on Earth, circa 2022, many churches are struggling. The structure and context of the idea of church is changing. This is partially due to the high-tech times in which we live. The whole world is changing. And partially due to the restrictions that we experienced during the pandemic. Yet, if we remember the wisdom of John Warren, we will understand that we have always been supported. We will recognize as individuals and as a spiritual community the opportunities, means, and synchronicities that present themselves right on schedule. And we will also be aware of the divine signs. 40 years old, first day at the village, or perhaps in the form of a rainbow fence in the backyard. Signs that assure us that life is miraculous and we are loved beyond measure. As you go forth from today's service, take with you this assurance that you have a purpose, that you are being led along the road to fulfilling that purpose, and that God is with you always. And thus ends the lesson. God bless you.